Have you ever wondered why some women seem to carry a gravitational pull around them, while others, perhaps even more beautiful or accomplished, remain invisible to the eyes that matter most? It is not youth. It is not perfection. And it is certainly not luck. The secret is something deeper, older, more ancient than we dare to admit in our modern world of shallow glances and fleeting judgments. It's in the soul, in the quiet command of presence, in the wisdom written into their posture, their pauses, their choices. Carl Jung once said that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And some women, without shouting, without flaunting, without demanding, have earned that privilege. They have suffered and grown. They have failed and rebuilt. They have touched their own darkness and found light inside it. And now they walk, not with arrogance, but with a kind of sacred defiance and energy that says, I do not need to be chosen. I have already chosen myself. These women often mature, are irresistible, not because of what they give to others, but because of what they've given to themselves. They do not shrink to be loved. They expand to be true. And in that expansion, they become a mirror for everything a man secretly longs for, but rarely understands. It is not simply femininity. It is embodied individuation, a process that has fused their shadow and their light into a soul that no longer plays roles. She does not act like a lover. She becomes the essence of love itself, and that is a magnetism no one can counterfeit. It begins with the first habit. She radiates confidence before she speaks. Not the fake loud kind of confidence that's easily shaken, but the still kind. The type rooted in scars, healed properly. The kind built not from praise, but from persistence. Her confidence is not a performance. It's a quiet reality. You see it when she walks into a room, not in her heels, but in her spine. You feel it in her gaze, not because it seduces, but because it sees. And what makes this confidence so seductive is that it does not beg for approval. It's the kind of confidence that comes from facing rejection and realizing it does not define her. She has unlearned the habit of shrinking, of making herself small to be palatable. Now she simply is. And in her isness, she gives permission for others to drop their masks and meet her with presence. When she speaks, her words are weighted with truth, not rehearsed, not rushed. She owns her voice because she has reclaimed her soul. She knows that men don't fall in love with perfection. They fall in love with a woman who makes them feel something ancient, something sacred, something terrifyingly real. The second habit is far more powerful than most people realize. She does not chase. She does not cling. She is not addicted to being wanted, because the woman who has done her inner work knows this desire grows in absence, in space, in uncertainty. And the paradox of magnetism is this: when you stop trying to be desired, you become desirable. She does not answer every message instantly, not as a game, but as a rhythm. Her life has its own gravity. She is not pausing her day to wonder why he hasn't texted. She is immersed in her purpose, her books, her rituals, her friendships. She doesn't live in the waiting room of someone else's attention. And that kind of emotional independence drives men wild. Because when a woman does not need you to breathe, her presence becomes breathable. There's no suffocation, no manipulation, no desperation masked as love. Instead, there's dignity. And dignity is erotic. Jung taught that we project our unmet needs onto others. And so the woman, who no longer needs to be completed, becomes a screen upon which a man projects not his wounds, but his awe. He chases her, not because she withholds, but because her freedom invites him to rise. She is not withholding affection. She is practicing devotion to herself. And that devotion creates a mystique far more alluring than any dress or flirtation ever could. It says, I belong to myself first. And paradoxically, that is the woman a man most wants to belong to, not because she needs him, but because she chooses him freely. And every man deep in his unconscious longs to be chosen not for filling a void, but for being witnessed at his core. The third habit. She has cultivated a signature style that reflects not just fashion, but soul. This is not about wearing designer clothes. This is about congruence, alignment. Her outer world mirrors her inner world. She dresses not for approval, but for expression. Her colors, her textures, her scent, her walk, they are an extension of her energy. You can spot her by the way she carries herself, by the harmony between her presence and her aesthetic. And it's not about being put together in the commercial sense. It's about coherence. Jung said, the self is born when the conscious and unconscious unite. And this woman, she dresses like someone whose inner and outer selves have shaken hands. Her appearance is not decoration. It is declaration. When she walks into a room, she doesn't scream for attention, she silently claims it. She understands the psychology of colors, the symbolism of jewelry, the ritual of putting herself together as an act of sacred preparation. Even her perfume is intentional, a signature scent that lingers in memory not just on skin. And that scent paired with her stillness, her voice, her gaze creates an aura, not of seduction, but of sovereignty. She does not dress to be seen. She dresses because she has seen herself. And that seeing, that honoring of her own body, her own curves, her own age, is magnetic. Men don't just notice her. They remember her. Not because she tried to impress them, but because she impressed herself. And that is the root of all true beauty. A woman in alignment with her own essence. The fourth habit is the most misunderstood in our achievement-obsessed culture. She has mastered the art of feminine energy, not as a tactic, but as a truth. Feminine energy is not weak. It is not submissive. It is not a regression to outdated gender roles. It is the power of receptivity, intuition, fluidity. It is the grace of knowing when to lean back, when to listen, when to let go. The woman who is irresistible understands this paradox. The more she softens into her truth, the more the world bends toward her. Not because she manipulates, but because she magnetizes. Jungian psychology speaks of the anima, the inner feminine present in both men and women. When a woman lives from her embodied anima, she becomes a mirror for the masculine to find balance. She is not trying to lead every conversation plan, every date, control every outcome. She allows life to unfold, and that trust, that surrender, that presence, it seduces on a soul level. Not because she is passive, but because she knows that silence can speak, that absence can attract, that depth can't be rushed. She is the calm in the storm, the eye at the center of the chaos. And in her presence, men feel not just aroused, but anchored. She becomes the sanctuary where they can stop performing and start feeling. And that is a rare gift. She inspires not by demanding attention, but by embodying intention. And every word, every movement, every moment becomes a dance, not of domination, but of deep mutual recognition. The fifth, and perhaps most transformative habit, she is deeply, unapologetically independent. Not just financially, but emotionally, spiritually, existentially. She does not look for someone to complete her story. She writes her own. She does not wait to be saved. She builds, she creates, she evolves. Her life is not a pause between relationships. It is a poem being written in real time. Carl Jung spoke of individuation, the process of becoming whole. This woman is not a half looking for another half. She is a whole inviting another whole to dance. Her solitude is not a sentence. It is a sanctuary. She enjoys her own company. She travels alone. She dines alone. Not because she doesn't value connection, but because she has become her own most sacred companion. And this autonomy, this inner sovereignty radiates. It says, I am not afraid of the silence. I have met myself in the dark. And I trust the light I carry. Men are drawn to her not because she makes them feel needed, but because she makes them feel inspired. Being near her feels like oxygen, like elevation, like finally being free to become something more. And yet, she is also the gatekeeper. She does not let just anyone in. Her standards are not based on fantasy, but on frequency. She protects her peace, her energy, her space, because she knows her worth, and that knowing that unshakable clarity is more seductive than any game, any line, any costume. It is truth, and truth once tasted cannot be forgotten. And finally, the sixth habit, the one most invisible yet most transformative, she has mastered the art of soulful conversation. Not just with others, but with herself, with her dreams, with her fears, with the unconscious whispers that live beneath the noise of daily life. She has learned to sit in silence and listen, to feel the subtle shifts in her own energy, to translate the language of symbols and shadows. This is not merely a woman who talks well. This is a woman who has become the voice of something deeper, something ancient, something timeless. When she speaks, it's not to impress, it's to express. When she listens, it's not to respond, it's to understand. She has outgrown the need to dominate a conversation with cleverness. She has stepped beyond the hunger for constant validation. Instead, she offers presence, depth, resonance. And in that offering, she becomes unforgettable. Because in a world addicted to performance, real presence is revolutionary. Jung said that words are the close of thoughts, but what matters most is the soul underneath. And this woman speaks from her soul. She doesn't reveal everything at once. She lets mystery breathe. She allows pauses. She welcomes silence into the conversation as if it too were a participant. Men leave conversations with her, not just thinking about what was said, but feeling changed by it. Because she doesn't just communicate, she transmits. She knows how to ask the right questions, not to trap a man, but to awaken him. Questions like, what do you fear most? Or, when was the last time you cried? Or what part of yourself do you keep hidden? These are not flirtations. These are invitations to soul. And when a man meets a woman like this, something shifts inside him. His defenses soften. His mind slows. His heart listens. Because suddenly, he's not being seduced. He's being seen. And nothing in the world, no body, no beauty, no brilliance can compare to the woman who sees you, all of you, and still holds space without judgment. She becomes a mirror to the self he forgot. And in her reflection, he sees what he could become, not just for her, but for himself. This is the rarest kind of seduction, not of body, not even of mind, but of soul. And soul seduction cannot be faked. It cannot be learned in a book or performed in a mirror. It is the result of deep inner work, of embracing the shadow, of facing the loneliness, of refusing to betray yourself for temporary affection. This is the woman who walked through the fire of rejection, and emerge without bitterness. The woman who sat with her own darkness long enough to no longer be afraid of anyone else's. The woman who no longer flinches when someone leaves because she no longer leaves herself. And this is the woman men cannot forget. Not because she's the loudest or the most giving or the most provocative, but because she is the most real. In her presence, the world slows, time stretches, and the noise fades, because she carries the one energy every man secretly craves, but rarely names peace. Not passivity, but peace. Not emptiness, but fullness. A woman who is full of herself, not in arrogance, but in essence. Full of soul, full of purpose, full of forgiveness, full of power, the kind of power that doesn't dominate, but liberates. And when a man encounters this energy, he feels both terrified and awakened, because she calls forth not the boy in him, but the king. She does not seduce his hunger. She awakens his highest nature. And that is the kind of woman who is not just irresistible. She is unforgettable, undeniable, unrepeatable. So if you are listening to this and wondering if you must change yourself to be desired, stop. The truth is, you are not here to become what the world wants. You are here to remember what you already are. You don't need to wear a mask. You need to take it off. You don't need to compete. You need to align. You don't need to prove. You need to become. Each of these habits, confidence, detachment, style, feminine energy, independence, soulful conversation, is not a strategy. It is a byproduct of returning home to yourself, of unlearning the lies you were told about what makes a woman worthy. You are not a commodity. You are a cosmos. You are not here to be chased. You are here to be revered. And reverence begins within. So take a deep breath. Look into the mirror, not to criticize, but to remember. There is a woman in you, mature, magnetic, mystical, waiting to be reclaimed. Not when you lose 10 pounds. Not when you find the right man. Not when you make more money. Now, in this moment, in this breath, in this choice. Choose her. Choose yourself. That is the root of all true seduction, not playing a part, but becoming whole. And when you do, when you embody the totality of your being without shame, you won't need to chase love. Love will find you, not because you are perfect, but because you are real. You are whole. You are finally fully home.